In the world of open source, community contributions are the norm. That's why Mozilla's recent decision to overwrite community contributions with an AI-powered bot feels like such a betrayal. You might assume that the AI is powered by an open model with datasets available on Mozilla Data Collective.
We've set up a separate data organization, social enterprise called the Mozilla Data Collective, which uses a Wikipedia-style way of collecting training data, so people have ethical training data sets that are also more diverse, very niche, really important as you build things like small models.
Mozilla's leadership has recently been talking up open source AI, saying that it's important to own what you build.
That's a future we can choose, one where we do own what we build, where open source AI becomes the default. But it is not inevitable. We need to choose it. And there's two choices we need to make. One is choose open source AI when you're building things, if you're a developer. Invest in companies that are building on open source AI or that are building part of this open source AI stack if you're an investor. And as I said a moment ago, if you're a government, get real about tech sovereignty. You can only do it if you have open source underneath. And if you want it in AI, it means open source AI. And then there's one other choice we all need to make. And that is really to band together if we want this future. And the thing I would just say to all of you, if you want this future, join us. Thanks very much.
I took a look at the Data Collective to see whether the support Mozilla data was there. No such luck. I should have looked at the Kitsune documentation instead. Kitsune is the software that runs Sumo, and the Kitsune developers have helpfully documented the translation bot. Kitsune is a Japanese word for fox, and in Japanese folklore, they are ascribed with intelligence and magical powers. Kitsune's bot is built on top of Gemini 2.5 Pro according to the docs. Unlike the vision that Mozilla is pitching elsewhere, Gemini 2.5 is not an open source model, with data coming from publicly available sources. We know what that means. Google pirated a whole bunch of copyrighted material from the web. The UK-based Society of Authors wrote an open letter to Google upon the introduction of Gemini saying, "The Society of Authors was greatly concerned to hear that, at the launch of Gemini Pro, Google repeatedly refused to answer questions from reporters about how it collected Gemini's training data, where the training data came from, and whether any of it was licensed from a third party. Given the reportedly extensive infringement of copyright-protected works that took place to build existing large language models, this continued lack of transparency is alarming and leads us to assume that Google has used creators' work unlawfully and unfairly without consent or any kind of remuneration." While we don't yet know what the legal remedies for the copyright infringement used to create models like Gemini is going to be, there's no doubt that Gemini is both closed source and contains pirated material. If you are involved in the wider Mozilla community, you may know about Common Voice. Common Voice is an open source dataset of speech data of over 130 languages, all contributed by members of the community, including myself. This data is available to download on Mozilla's new Data Collective. The existence of the Common Voice dataset demonstrates that people are willing to contribute to open datasets. Companies don't need to infringe on people's copyrights in order to get access to training data. In choosing closed source and infringing models, Mozilla is biting the hands of the community that feeds it. Mozilla has experience in getting community contributions to build open datasets. Instead of asking for their community's help in developing an open source localization model, they deployed a closed source model and destroyed open contributions. That makes Mozilla's commitment to open source AI seem insincere. Mozilla's moves represent a double betrayal. First, they reject the community's contributions to Sumo's knowledge base. Then, to add insult to injury, they reject the very idea of open source by implementing a closed source model based on stolen data. Mozilla's Data Collective includes this blurb on the homepage. Mozilla Data Collective is rebuilding the AI data ecosystem with communities at the center. Access over 300 high-quality global datasets built by and for the community in a transparent and ethical way. While Mozilla says that they are rebuilding AI data ecosystems with communities at the center, that isn't what's happening on Support Mozilla. There, Mozilla is destroying a high-quality dataset built by the community in a transparent and ethical way. Why should people contribute to Mozilla if Mozilla itself does not privilege open source? The message that Mozilla is sending when choosing to overwrite human contributions with stolen ones is that while Mozilla will gladly take your contributions, it is also willing to steal them. The Gemini Terms of Service says that Google does not use submitted prompts to improve Gemini. That means that overwrite over overwrite, any fixes that localizers make to the Mozilla knowledge base can be overwritten at any moment by a bot that doesn't learn. The only way that Kitsune developers can modify Gemini's output is to modify the prompt that Mozilla sends to Google to provide a translation. While that changes the command that Mozilla sends to Google, it has no effect on the underlying model that contains the error being corrected. Why should Mozillians bother to make corrections to a corpus that's prone to be overwritten by anyone making changes to the US version of an article when they know that the correction won't stick, can't stick, because Mozilla is throwing away the open data that they're contributing release after release? Since the November Sumo call, Mozilla continues to barrel ahead towards the brave new world of proprietary AI. Following up from the call, Mozilla introduced a feedback and training period where they invited the community to study the machine translation bot and to provide feedback. The feedback process is not open. Instead of asking for feedback on the forum where they made the announcement, they're telling the community to submit feedback in secret to a Google form, monitored by Mozilla. That seems like a good way to silence negative feedback and to only allow approved feedback to emerge. Why is Mozilla, an open company, operating in such secrecy? As Mozilla gets feedback, the bot continues to run and support Mozilla, overriding community contributions. A recently opened Kitsune feature request reveals the challenging environment that contributors are operating in. Contributors want a listing of articles that have been overwritten by the bot. They want it to look like an existing listing of unreviewed articles. A full month after Marazev resigned from Sumo as Japanese locale leader, contributors are still looking for an easier way for them to find the AI's modifications. Why is Mozilla speedrunning to close source AI? I have some ideas about that, but this video is already pretty long. If you like this video, share it with a friend. I'd love your thoughts on new video ideas.